On today's Minute of the Apes, it's Wednesdays, and this minute is about 60 seconds long.
Divine bomb. They are the good human and the dead human. Where there is fire, there is smoke. Now, fight like a minute of Apes. A minute of the Apes. A minute of the Apes. A minute of the Apes.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time. I am Todd. Across from me, sashaying over to one side of his butt cheek is Richard as he slides the script under his other butt cheek. And then we have Sean trying to figure out if really a minute is 60 seconds. Sean, have you found the answer
Did you
yet?
Google it yet?
All right, what are facts, man? I mean,
Hey,
because a
Siri.
day is just, 24 hours, and then an hour is just 60 minutes, and then 60 minutes just 60 seconds. And, like a second is just part of a day, but what's a day, man?
We could just let Sean go on like that forever. That is
and
the
that's
truth.
it. All right. Bye, everybody.
Yep, it's been a great minute. We love you all. All right, so how are we on this Wednesday? Are we ready for another Tim Burton minute?
Yeah, let's get some shit done.
Let's get it done.
All right, let's knock it out. Sean, minute 33. Tell us what's going on.
All right, we start at minute 33 with Thade saying Apes is no vice, Senator, and ends with Michael Clark Duncan leading us in prayer. Bow your heads, damn it!
Next time you're going to do that, can you warn me so I can bring the microphone down, damn it?
I can't hear anything. What?
Here it comes, minute 33. Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Apes is no vice, Senator. Your ideas threaten our prosperity. The human problem cannot be solved by simply throwing money at it.
The government tried that once, and all we got for it was a welfare state that nearly bankrupted us.
I think the city has about as much diversity as I can handle. Look at this garment. This was made by one of my humans. I mean, can you deny the skill? Isn't it obvious that they are capable of a real culture?
Everything in the human culture takes place below the waist.
Bow your heads! We give thanks to you, Simos, for the fruit of the land. Bless us, Holy Father, who created all apes in his image.
As of minute 33, we have an Oberon's worth of apes and humans, 2 displaced pods worth of humans and apes, wild humans, and an ape city.
Okay, so visually we're still at the dinner table. We do back and forth shots, back and forth. There's not a lot to look at outside of that. When Ari brings up the human garment, we see that in her hand, though we do not get a tight shot of it to really let us see the craftsmanship. The gorillas screaming as we get the bow your head moment. That is about it visually, other than that everyone decides to pray at the end and put their heads down. And I'm going to visually call out one thing, and that is at 56 seconds, Lisa Marie literally has the most over-the-top reaction to the whole Simos prayer. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but visually it is the one thing to me that stands out in this minute, because everything else is a bunch of people looking about and reacting to the conversation at hand. So we begin this moment with more of the intimate discussion between David Warner and Thade. They sit at the table, their eyes fixed very much. David Warner is another actor where, when he's looking off to the side, you can see this look through the makeup of the, I'm trying to placate you and trying not to upset those around me. At least he's trying in that too. There's not a characterization, but there's still good acting beneath the makeup. From that point, we get into the whole thing with Ari. So let's begin with why is the senator both defending his daughter and the military at the same time? Why can't he make a stance one way or another? Is he that perfect politician that cannot make a stance? Is that what we're to get by this?
He is lukewarm water, and I spew him from my mouth.
I don't really understand. This would mean something if I had seen that senator in a senatorial standing earlier in the screenplay where I'd actually see it. The screenplay to this point, and I think this conversation as it goes along with the the only thing humans can do is this thing, it's below the waist. Whereas the first film was a commentary on the way we are as humans, this is a commentary on societal situations. That's what it seems like it wants to be. It wants to get down to sexualization. It wants to get down to the government taking care of people on welfare effectively.
Right. Like even that in of itself was like, okay, this sounds like a talking point that has no substance behind it. I don't have no sense of what this welfare state is. Is it about humans? Is it about themselves? Like who was the welfare state by throwing money at something? It's just kind of a weird.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that too because I was thinking, all right, so how do we become a welfare state by trying to get rid of rats? It didn't make sense to me. But then I thought, I don't know if you've heard of it, in the 30s, 1930s, there was in Australia an emu war where the government was trying to wipe out emus because they were destroying crops in Australia, and they had soldiers trying to fight and take out emus. And emus are still considered a pest in Australia, and they still destroy crops. And so,
okay, but to that end, will we not have needed to see a bit more of this war on humans?
Well, we should be seeing not only a war on humans, but we should, if they truly are a pest, we should see when they're being dragged through in the cart, being about to be sold and everything. You should see a human off in the alleyway eating some trash or something, and then scurries away or something. You should see, if they are truly a vermin or a pest, you should see one every now and then.
We
wild
should have
human.
seen a crop, like you've been in farm films where the crop goes in and locusts have devastated.
Yeah.
We should have seen a crop that's just decimated.
All the apple
Everything's
cores on
gone.
the ground.
It's completely overwhelmed. Or then if you want to create a welfare state, maybe we're trying to pull them from that and control it, then create effectively, let's go to the 30s again, bread lines, soup lines, and be feeding them, and they're just pitiful things that you're feeding on the streets. Something like that visually might have helped this conversation. But when you get to this moment without any context to it, it's like, okay, I don't see it. You got plenty on this table. You're all eating in an opulent style. I don't see this as a threat to you.
Well, at least Marie then follows up with, I think the city has as much diversity as it can handle. In reference to what?
Yeah.
Did the welfare state have humans in the cities, and that's why it didn't work? She should have directed that to one of the humans that were out there in the room for that to make sense.
If
for me.
she had looked down her nose and said, "I think we have enough diversity as it is," that would have landed.
Otherwise, she's talking about the other apes at the table.
That's where I got into. Is this diversity about gender? Now I know this is way before the gender discussions we have today, but is it getting to same-sex marriage? These kind of things. Is that what you're talking about? The diversity? Is that where they were going with this? Because again. You can't have these conversations without something that tells me what you mean, because otherwise they're just talking points.
Okay, and to say that humans, are pests or whatever, if I had a dog that could make clothing, I would see
exploit that.
Significantly different than I see a dog currently. As yes, we have breeds that are well trained to, border collies want a job. They want to herd people, want to herd sheep, want to herd something. They want a job. There are breeds that want a job. If I had one that could physically do a job, manufacturing, that's a whole another can of worms. I mean,
well, and no offense, Ari, but the argument that they created a textile does not prove culture.
No.
That was what threw me about that. They have culture. They created a textile. For all I know, you directed that textile. I don't know how much you were involved with.
If they wrote an opera and they're putting it on and it has actual relevance, maybe we could go for some culture, but no.
It didn't make any sense either just to jump to they have culture because they created this textile, this garment that I'm wearing.
It's like saying
they made this food.
Birds made a nest. That means they have culture. No, that just means they know how to make a nest. But if they make my clothing, that's different.
Well, what would be nice is if somebody actually came back to her and said, I can make clothing, or Sean can make clothing. He certainly doesn't have any culture. Yeah. And everybody laughs at it, then kind of puts her down. But also, it could have been an interesting thing like that That's the thing that bugs me the most is these conversations are people throwing out points and nobody's actually countering or talking to them.
There was a very brief period of time when I was 23 and 24.
When I was 23.
Well, that would be
When I was young. Youth is wasted on the young. No, but there was a period of time where I ended up hanging out with a bunch of people that were gay and in society, and then had always mixed. They were all designers. I don't know. I swear this is going somewhere. And they would have dinner parties, and they would have people over for dinner, and everybody would get high. I'm not kidding. Cocaine, whatever it was, whatever they were high on, right? And they would drink, and they would smoke, and they would do all this stuff. And these were the kind of conversations that would happen in that moment. You'd be sitting at a table with a bunch of people.
I know exactly what you mean.
With a bunch of people with money. They're all altered somehow, whether it's drinking or drugs or whatever. And they would then begin talking about how great they are, and then almost slam everything around it. And it would have these kind of weird political things thrown out there, and nobody would counter it. They would probably either just agree with it or kind of move on to something else. Like it was just kind of this weird. This is a conversation I could hear in that moment. People trying to impress everybody, other people around them.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Abby, no, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Abby recently told me that same kind of thing while she was at college. A couple of friends were sitting around drinking, smoking. Yeah, and we're talking about all of our oppressors. We should be kind to them all. And it was like, what does that even fucking mean?
Right.
You know, these ideas, you can say these thoughts that sound profound, yet they're actually incredibly superficial.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this conversation is. Nobody's getting to the heart of what they're trying to talk about. Again, if we're talking about the decimation of our crops, why didn't Ari, that would have been her perfect thing. I've got enough to eat, don't you? That's her perfect counter. That's her characterization too, is that she looks at their hypocrisies. And you're only using that because you hate humans. Now we start getting into a conversation that's interesting, because now you're almost creating race wars and you're things like that. But instead, you're just talking about things that are the most innocuous.
Very, very surface level people that are trying to impress one another with their political beliefs that may or may not be drunk or high, because they're just trying to like sound.
It would be better if they were drunk or high.
I mean, it would make a little more sense.
It would.
It would make a little more sense why they suddenly get like, oh, below the waist. Yeah.
God, that came off literally like my grandmother was at the table, that we're just making, pee-pee and poo-poo jokes and stuff like that.
But
it's like, really?
That's what this conversation feels like. I guess it's really telling us more about the world and where these actual characters stand. Maybe we're just supposed to kind of go with the fact that Sandar's senator friend is on the conservative side, and Sandar's probably either on the left side or left leaning, and therefore his daughter is the raging liberal. And Thade, who secretly likes his daughter, only knows how to be aggressive towards her because he's got a crush on her. But his dad also might be a senator, but he's head of the military probably because of his dad. And I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be glad when we get away from this dinner table. I do think that we're getting some interesting things where we at least kind of understand where they want us to think the characters lean. That Thade is all about aggression, is all about wiping out humanity. Ari stands up for him. The other people are just the morons who fall in line behind that stuff. Now, there's one thing that we would be remiss if we did not get to.
Can we talk about the prayer?
Yeah,
about what's going on there.
So first off, we get the thing the only thing that I ever get from Shelley when I say we're doing this movie is a bow your head. Bow your head.
Really? That's what she remembers from this movie, is bow your head?
Yeah, that's what she remembers. And then we get the whole Seamus thing. So finally, we get a little more Seamus. We'd heard that mentioned before. Seamus is their god.
So yeah,
or their Messiah or something.
Is he God or is he Jesus Christ? I don't know which is he. It's supposed to be. Is he supposed to be the deity, or is he supposed to be the person that came down and was sacrificed?
So before we get to the actual prayer, the point about not seeing what Mark was doing, his busy work, also kind of affects this right here. NBX Mayor reaches over for some food and begins to pull it, but I'll be honest, it's so not in the shot.
You can't see that he's actually going.
That I have no idea why Atar suddenly goes, bow your heads. I had to watch this minute by minute to realize why he suddenly just interjected that. And that's because he's reaching for food, I guess, to eat. And we have a prayer before we have eat. But I would not have picked that up because, honestly, Lisa Marie's character is picking up fruit and smelling it.
Oh, that's true.
So I honestly did not know why he suddenly just said, bow your heads, until I went back and realized that this other character is trying to pick up a piece of food and they haven't been technically been eating
and
yet.
To be fair about that, she could have picked up the food earlier if she'd looked at him and he just gone, "Grr," and she put the food back. Anything like that kind of probably worked.
This again, the characters having these sudden aggressions where they just growl and bark at one another and yell and all that kind of stuff was this moment for me. It made no sense. It felt like it came out of nowhere.
Right.
Well, heck, if you go back to the beginning of the minute at where the first time we see the orangutan is at 10 seconds in, he's got like a big cookie in his hand and everything too. So he's got food in his hand as well. So
yeah, I'm looking at roughly a shot that begins at 7 seconds. Lisa Marie, I guess that's her, or it's that chimp with the great makeup. I don't know which side of the table they're on. One has a spoon and another has a cup in their hand. And then you're right. Then the orangutan has a cookie.
a biscuit.
Or whatever it may be. I'm just trying to skim through this. And Dave Warner already has a cup in his hand at 28 seconds. So, yeah, you're right, Richard. There's not a lot of consistency. It's only when the orangutan reaches for more at the 43-second mark and reaches that we get the bow your head. And that's when we finally get the... Oh, is that what he does?
That's what Lisa Marie does. She puts her palms back to back, the back of her hands together to pray.
So the prayer moment was supposed to take place earlier. I did want to bring that up, but it still takes place before. It still takes place after all the food interchange. It was actually supposed to happen after Thade says, "Extreme in defense of apes is no vice," and then we move into prayer. It doesn't have a reason. He just goes into, "We give thanks to you, Seamus, for the fruit of our land. Bless us, Holy Father, who created all apes in his image." There's no reason for him to be angry. He just kind of goes into prayer. And then after that, they continue their conversation about your ideas threaten our prosperity. The human problem will not be solved by throwing money at it. So it does take place earlier. It just still takes place after all of the food movement and so on. It's just kind of rough and aggressive and doesn't come in. It comes out of nowhere. And the characters all seem relatively reluctant to have their head in prayer. We've done nothing to set up Atar as being a religious figure other than he's a general.
Well, I'm also watching. Have you ever seen the video on editing about Bohemian Rhapsody and around the table scene, and that how a lot of people consider it to be an example of horrible editing? You know, conversations around
all the time.
Conversations around tables are very tricky because it's, you know, like Richard just looked at me and shooting this way, but I'm technically to his left, and you can't then cut over Sean's and cut here because it makes me jump the table. There are some weird things like that. I can't really pinpoint it, but like you can at least tell the chimp with the great makeup and his chick, she has some kind of geometric pattern, kind of a tan geometric pattern on her arm. Mm-hmm. So that at least allows you to identify her visually away from Lisa Marie.
Yeah.
But even at the very end, there's a weird cut from like 49 seconds where we see the orangutan looking to Atar to then the cut of the woman who has been in every other shot has been on this side, right, and now she's over here looking that way, and she technically shouldn't be looking. I hate to get into those kind of things, but it's even the scene is confusing because like who the fuck's looking at who and where's it going? All that said, then we get into Seamus, that we give thanks to you, Seamus, for the fruit of the land. Bless us, Holy Father, who created all apes in his image. Why, as we talked about food, has no one invoked Seamus before this? Why is it only now?
We heard like 5 minutes before, I think, when we first cut to the kitchen where we saw Marky Mark and our unnamed female, I think we heard like,
on
Seamus,
a street.
yeah, Seamus help us or something like that.
But why are we hearing
Seamus
one of these
already.
people already when they're talking about the humans are decimating our crops, that kind of thing? Why wouldn't they say, why couldn't Helena come in and say, but Seamus
provides, or
for all, you know,
Yeah.
using religion as a tool against them?
yeah.
It just seems weird that all of a sudden now when it's convenient, let's have a prayer. Seamus is in on this.
So, are we talking about future minutes? Because I feel like this is relevant for a future minute more than
Talk
anything
all
else.
you want.
I feel like the same setup for Thade's introduction is what's this whole prayer movement and what's happening for it is for a later minute.
Maybe so.
I feel like it's basically supposed to be a setup for something that's about to happen.
How the hell have we ended up in 3 minutes that really the three of us agreed not a lot's going on, and every one of these has been a 20-minute episode? How is that even possible?
I don't know.
I'm going to put an end on it because we've got to come back tomorrow. We've got to keep this ball rolling. So for Richard and Sean, I'm Todd. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.